Are you ready for the third part in our quilt along? We are going to make row 12. Hi there, my name is Irene and you are watching the Sugaridoo YouTube channel. This video is about the third part in the Sugaridoo Bernina quilt along, and today we will be working on row 12. So the final row of our quilt, the one that is in the bottom of the quilt, and it is looking like this. Ta-da! It is called Tetris because it reminds me of my favorite pocket game when I was little, Tetris. So I don't know if you also played it, but I really liked it, and this reminded me of it, so that's why it's called Tetris. For this row we are going to cut strips and sew them together, cut them up again and sew them back together. That is what we will be doing. So it's a little bit like the first part of the quilt along, so row 5 that we did. So no new techniques in here. But what you can focus on today is really practicing on getting your 1/4 inch seam a 1/4 inch. So there are many seams, as you can see at the back of this row. So many seams. So you can really practice on that. And please, with this row, be kind to yourself. Allow yourself to practice. Allow yourself to not make it perfect, to just make it and see how it turns out and do your best and enjoy it, because that's the most important thing for this quilt along. Just in case you're new here and wondering what the quilt along is about, well, it's the Sugaridoo Bernina quilt along, where I work together with Bernina to make this quilt along for you. I designed the quilt and we're hosting all the patterns for free on the Bernina blog. And we have a Facebook group, which is the best Facebook group ever. Everybody is so kind and so nice in there. We have that, and there is a hashtag on Instagram which you can use. You can sign up for my newsletters, then you will get the patterns in your inbox. And all the information, all the previous links to everything you need, fabric kits, which you can still order. What else? Yeah, sign up to the email, posts to the patterns and links to the videos. You can find it all at sugaridoo.com/QAL. So that's it, in case you're new. And in case you're not new, you've probably already finished 2 of the rows. Maybe not, maybe you're taking it slow or starting later. That's all fine. Don't feel rushed because other people already finished their rows. Just go at your own pace. That's the best pace. But if you have finished the first 2 rows already, that's awesome. I just wanted to say that you're doing great, and it's so much fun to see all the rows turning up. So today you can add a 3rd row to your collection for the quilt along. Let's get started. For materials today we will need our accent fabric. For me that's titanium, and your fabric for row 12, and for the rainbow that is Capri, the lightest blue. So this one can be put aside. And besides fabric we need a rotary cutter, an inch ruler. I use a long one and a short one, but you can do with either one of those. And of course fabric for your background. So that is what we will be using today. The first thing we will do for this row is cut some strips, and I've went over the technique for cutting strips in the first video of this quilt along, so I'm going to show you how I'm doing it, but I'm not going into so much detail because it's the same technique as we did in part 1, so row 5 of the quilt along, where we make the hashtags. So if you want to go over that again, you can find the link in the screen here on top and in the description of this video below. And I'm just going to show you how big we need the strips for this row. So now I'll just go ahead and show you what sizes of strips we will need for this row. So let's start with my main fabric. From this I need 1 strip of 4 inch and 2 strips of 2 1/4 inch. So first I'll just trim off the edge. Make sure I'm squaring it up at the top. And then trimming off on this side. So first we need 4 inch. All the measurements are with including seam allowance, and the seam allowance we're using is 1/4 inch. There we go, that is 1 of 4 inch wide. And now I need 2 of 2 1/4. So here are the blocks, 1 inch, 2 inch, and then 1 small line further, that's 2 1/4 inch. Take your time to measure this. This row has a lot of seams, so when you're off a little bit on every seam, that will add up in the end. So take your time to measure twice and cut once. There we go. Let's see what else we need from this fabric. We need 1 piece of 4 by 2 1/4 inch and 2 pieces of 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. So I'm just going ahead and trimming off another row of 2 1/4. Oops. There we go. And now from this I needed 2 squared pieces of 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. That's 1. That's another one, and then 1 4 inches. There we go. That's everything we need from our main fabric. Now, as you can see, we have some fabric left, which is 2 1/4 inch wide. Just hold on to this. When you make some mistakes, or when you need to redo some pieces in this row, or you halfway we do a lot of cutting and you cut incorrectly, then you can make some extra pieces with this strip of fabric. Now I move on to my accent fabric, which is this one, and I'm just going to trim off the side. There we go. From this accent fabric I only need 2 pieces of 2 1/4 inch squared and 1 piece of 2 1/4 inch by 4. So what I can do is trim off a little strip of 2 1/4 inch and then cut those pieces from there. So this is all we need from our accent fabric. And then my background fabric, and from this we need 2 strips of 4 inches wide. And now from our background fabric we also need 3 strips of 4 inches by 2 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim off a strip of 2 1/4 inch. And this strip, again, just like the blue strip that we had left over, you can save this, so when something goes wrong you can use this to make additional pieces. So let's trim off the 4 inch. That's already 2 pieces, and then 1 more. There we go. That is 3 extra pieces. It is time for us to start sewing. Now we've cut our strips. It's time to get your machine ready to sew with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Everything we will be sewing is with a 1/4 inch seam, and we will first start by sewing the light gray strip, or your background piece, together with the wide blue strip. So these two are going to be next to each other. That is what we are going to be sewing. And then after that you want to use your other background piece and take 1 blue piece on this side, so the smaller main fabric piece that is, and the other piece on that side, so that we get 2 long strips. And then we're going to cut those up and sew them together again. So let's first start with sewing our strips together. I have set up my machine with the Bernina patchwork foot, that's 97D, and with the guide bar. So when I lower my foot, it's going to be just next to the sidebar. And this sidebar is lined up with this line, and they are all a 1/4 inch. So I can line up my strips along those lines. So when you're working on a Bernina that already has these guidelines and features, that's awesome. But if you're not, then in my previous video I showed you how you could use washi tape or masking tape to create your own guidelines to sew with a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. There we go, that is one light blue strips added to the grey fabric, and I'm just going to go right ahead and also join the other blue strips here. So when I'm sewing these long strips and I already have my guide bar over here, then I'm mostly paying attention to lining up my fabric over here so that they are aligned on top of each other, and then guiding them along this 1/4 inch line. Because my guide bar is over here, I know that it's going to be correct over there. So I'm just lining it up every time here and then peeking if my fabric is touching the guide bar over there. Awesome, that's one strip done already. Just going to sew the other and then give it a press. So now we joined our long strips together, it's time to press. And in this row I'm going to press every seam open. I think that gives a good, precise result. So I'm going to press everything open for these long strips, but also for when we cut them and when we sew them again. I'm also going to press them open. So that one is done. And now we have the one with the 2 strips. Just going to press them open one by one. Awesome, so now we have our long strips combined. Now it's time to also sew together the smaller strips. And the idea is the same, so we're going to take the longer blue piece and the longer light gray, and those are going to be joined. And then you take the smaller blue piece. Let's see, did I cut this correctly? Yes, we also need this. So this should be joined. But then I see that I cut one light gray piece too little, so you need 2 light gray pieces. Well, in total 4 of these pieces. So I said only 3, but we need 4. So one of them, you're going to do a light blue square and then a gray square on this side. So we will make this 2 times. So 2 times a light blue square and a accent color. And then 1 times gray with gray and 1 times blue with gray. Does that make sense? I'm just going to sew it and then show it again to you. So here's what I'm going to sew. I'm going to take a light blue piece, another light blue piece, light blue piece, and a accent fabric, and then here's the light grays, and then the dark grays. So this is what we want to make. And here are the special pieces that we made next to our long strips. So remember that if something goes wrong, you can easily just make extra pieces like this or extra pieces like this with blue on two sides, so that you can use those in your row when you need them. And here you can already see what we will be making. So here is the first Tetris shape already forming, you see? And then also the gray one, it's going to be here. This is what the row is going to look like. We are now about to cut our strips and sew them back together to get the Tetris shapes for this row. But I just wanted to take a second to say something. Because what we are now going to do is kind of repetitive. We're going to cut a lot of strips, 41 in total, and then sew them back together. And it's kind of tempting to just rush it and chop 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 and sew it together, and then yes, my row is finished, and it was a super quick one. It is kind of a quick row, but I really want to ask you to take your time, because we're going to make a lot of seams here. So it's going to be 41 strips we're going to sew together, and that is 40 seams that we have to sew. And when you are off on your 1/4 inch seam allowance, then that will show in the width of your row. So this one is a really nice one to practice your 1/4 inch seam allowance on, and really measure it and check if you're sewing correct and get a feeling for that. Because when you're off by a 1/16 of an inch, for centimeter people, that's 15 millimeter. That's just a tiny bit, but when you're off in every seam, that will add up to about 2.5 inches over the whole row. So that 2.5 inches, that is this. So your row can vary when you are off on every seam, and that's okay. That's why we have a little bit of additional fabric in our strips left, so when your seams are smaller and your row is getting shorter, then you can add some extra to the side. And when your row is bigger, so when your seams were smaller than a 1/4 inch, then it's going to be a little bit wider. That's no problem, then you can just chop off the ends. But yeah, please do take your time and don't feel rushed because it's repetitive. Just take your time in measuring those 2.25 inch strips very well, and also in sewing and paying attention to every one of them, to sewing them together. So before we can sew the row together, we first need to chop these apart. I'm first going to square off my end, lining up my middle seam here with a line on my ruler, and then chopping off the end. So this strip with 2 colors, we're going to chop off in 19 strips of 2.25 inch long, wide. So 2.25. I am measuring that my center seam is lined up over here, and then I'm measuring 2.25 inches over here. And we will need to chop 19 pieces like this. What you could do when you're halfway or getting towards the end is measure if your side is still squared. So line up the whole ruler with your side and check it over here. Let's see. Yeah, when I measure it, I can see that my blue is sticking out a little bit more than my gray, so along the way I got a a little bit of an angle in there. Just going to square it off. Again, trim off a tiny piece. So then you're good to go again. Another tip, if you want to be consistent, is just put a little washi tape on the top of your ruler, pointing out where the 2 1/4 inches. So because we're doing a lot of cutting, you don't make the mistake to pick a different size. I forgot to count, so I'll just chop it up all the way. I think that will fit 19 or maybe 20 pieces from one row. There we go. So let's count them. Should be 19. 1, 2, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, there's 19 pieces like this. And we already had one. So now we have 20 pieces like this. These two were also already ready. And from this, we will need to chop 18 pieces. And the final piece. That is 18. So now we have enough pieces to make a row. And we're going to start the row on the left side with this piece and then alternate. And this piece is going to be pointing with the blue part up the one time and with the blue part down the other time. So this is going to be alternating, and there you already see our Tetris shapes show up. How fun is that? And our accent fabric Tetris is going to be at the top of the row, and then it's going to be the 4th Tetris from the right side. So what you can do is you go already ahead and put this together. Sorry, I'll put it aside. Put this one together. And then when you start at the left side of your row, you first need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Tetrises on the top. So 6 whole Tetrises on the top, and then this will be the 7th from the left side of your row. So I'll just put this one together, and then I'll have my first Tetris finished. So I've just pieced my first 2 pieces together, and now I'm giving it a press. And also part of the taking it slow process is if you're unsure of the order of the row, just take it one piece at a time, sew it, give it a press, because now I've pressed it. It's really simple to see what kind of piece I should add next. So now I know that on this side I should have the little gray piece, and on this side there should be a blue piece over here, so that way you can easily piece your row together. And when you have the accent piece, that's going to be at the top of your row, and then on this side of the gray piece there should be 4 Tetrises, and on this side of the gray piece there should be 6 Tetrises, just to give you an idea of where in the row it should go. So let's add some pieces to this. When you're getting more confident of the order of the pieces, how they should go together, you can also do some chain piecing. And chain piecing means that you won't cut off your thread between the pieces that you're sewing. So now I'm sewing together these 2 pieces. And then I'm just not going to clip my thread. I'm just going to leave that on there and take the next piece and sew it together. So you'll just continue piecing, and so you can chain piece. So this is just a very small chain of pieces, but like this you can chain piece, and then you'll just continue adding pieces and pieces. Oh no, I've put my accent piece at the wrong side. Well, wrong side. If that happens to you, you can also always leave it. But this piece is now at the bottom of the row, and it should be there at the top of the row. So I'm just going to rip it out. But if something happens like this to you, I normally, when I would make a quilt for myself, I wouldn't really rip it out, but now as I'm making examples for the quilt along, I am going to do it accordingly as the pattern. But it's not really wrong, it's almost in the same spot, it's almost in the right spot, and it could be fun to leave these things in, because only you will know, and it makes your quilt a little bit unique. So if this happens to you, just leave it like it is, but I'm going to rip it out. So now that I've ripped out this piece, I am just going to give it a little press to fold this back so that I can sew it again. Final pieces. I'm almost there. So this one is now at the top of the row, and there should be 3 more blocks, Tetris blocks over here. So let's see what I have here. This one is going to go down here, and this piece is going here. Then this is the end of my row, and there we have the accent one and 1, 2, 3 pieces over here. Almost done. Yes, that was my final piece of sewing. Ta-da! Now a quick press, and then it's done. And ta-da! Row number 12, the third part of the quilt along, is finished. Awesome. And I thought it was pretty fun to sew. I did say that I was going to do a quick press, but since we have so many seams, it is a good idea to give it a good press. So not a quick press, but just give it a good press so that all those seams lie nice and flat. And when you've done that, then you are done with the third part of the quilt along. And when you've completed this row, you've already completed 25% of the quilt along. So we have 9 more rows to go. I'm super happy. It's so fun to see all those shapes turn out when you only start with strips. I think quilting is kind of magic. Okay, but yeah, that's the end of this video. That's the end of this row. I hope you liked it, and that it helps you practice on your 1/4 inch seam. So when you finished it, go ahead and show it in the Bernina community on the blog, or in our Facebook page. We have a nice album where you can show your the picture of your rows, and also in our Facebook page you can ask questions, and there's such a wonderful community of quilters out there. I really don't have words for it. I've never expected it to get this big, and the most special thing about the whole quilt along is the lovely community of quilters in our Facebook group. It's overwhelming. Everybody is so kind and so helpful. So if you're a new quilter or an experienced quilter even, and you have questions, please do ask them in the Facebook group. Everybody is so willing to help. Our moderators, Karen and Jill, are awesome, and they help me keep everything organized in there. And yeah, so if you have any questions, just ask them over there. You can also ask them in the comments below this video, and then I try to answer them. But there are so many quilters who are willing to help in our Facebook group, so please feel free to ask your questions also there. And then lastly, I just wanted to say thank you that you're here, that you're participating in a quilt along. Such a big quilt project, and I think it's awesome that you're joining the quilty fun with all of us. And I'm having loads of fun and enjoying so much all the rows that I see emerging on Instagram and Facebook and the Bernina blog. It's so cool to see what you all are making. I really enjoy it. So thank you for being here and quilting along and trying new things, learning new things, and just having fun. So good luck with this row, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye!